Hello and welcome to Western History Alive. I'm Kim Copel and I'm going to be your tour guide as I take you from the past to the present and bring history alive. But before we get started, I have an exciting announcement for you. Remember our last show when we were at the Old Genoa Bar and author Sandy Lene let us know that she was writing a book about Nevada's oldest thirst parlor? Well, guess what? I'm happy to tell you that the book is finished and it's due any day now from the publisher. So please watch Sandy Lene's show, Psychic Creations, on this same channel, or follow us on Facebook to find out exactly when the book will be released. Now, this show today is about the history of the horse in Nevada. And as we're driving along our country roads here in northern Nevada, it's not an uncommon sight to see horses in people's pastures. Well, it's not an uncommon sight to see horses on Main Street in Genoa either, as a matter of fact. But today, what we do with our horses is mostly ride them for pleasure or ride them in competition. Yes, there are horses that are still working horses on ranches, but you don't see them pulling wagons and carriages and farm equipment anymore. So let's take a moment and step back in time to a time when there were no mechanical vehicles, to a time when the horse was one of the most important commodities to any person. About 150 years ago, when the state of Nevada was getting its start, one could not walk across Main Street without being in danger of being run over by a stagecoach or a wagon or even a Pony Express rider. Russell, Majors, and Waddell chose Morgans, Thoroughbreds, Pintos, and Nevada Mustangs to run the Pony Express. This was because they needed the best of the best, and they were chosen for their endurance and sure-footedness. Now, before trains were present in Carson City and Carson Valley and Smith Valley, if you ordered anything, it was delivered to you by either wagon or stagecoach. And stage drivers were experts at handling their horses with light hands and sharp tongues. Some actually could swear the panels off the side of a saloon. In contrast to that, the old gray mare pulled the family carriage to church on Sunday morning and was actually as beloved a pet as the family dog. Now, you steal a man's horse, you steal his livelihood. So horse thievery was punishable by a quick drop and a fast stop, if you get what I mean. And when you look at old photos of towns here in the West, it wasn't uncommon to see twice as many or even 3 times as many horses in the photograph as there were people. Now, what happened to horses when automobiles came on the scene? I can tell you that many towns had quite an experience in transition. There were many drivers who were learning to drive the new automobile that would stop their vehicles with a big whoa because a brake was something that was foreign to them. So what I want to do after the break is introduce you to a special guest here today who is a legend in her own right and is dedicating her life to saving today's horses in need. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Across the trackless wastes of space and time, down through the eons we have come, the living river that our spirits ride, the shining bridge from sun to sun, beyond the broad expanses of the galaxy. Ancient heavens brightly burn, spanning light years we have crossed the cosmic seas. Through countless lifetimes we've returned. We are the wanderers, traveling from star to distant star, purposely forgetting what we were and who we are, becoming one of you, as we were destined to bring the light to you. We are the wanderers, down through unnumbered ages, through currents vast and deep, first a whisper, then a roaring, we come to wake you from your sleep.
Welcome back to Western History Alive. We have a very special guest here today that I'm honored to have on our show. I would love to introduce you to country western singing legend Lacy J. Dalton. Lacy, thank you for being on our show today. It's so nice to see you again. How have you been?
Kim, I couldn't be better, and I'm so pleased to be here with you today.
Oh,
and you know, I've just enjoyed you from the very moment I got to meet you when you came on my radio show to talk about the ghost hunting tours that you do and the historical tours of Old Town Genoa. And I'm really glad now to be on your show.
Well, thank you. I mean, we had so much fun on that show. It was a no-brainer. You had to be on my show. Thank you. Now, you're not originally from Northern Nevada, so what brought you here?
Kim, I have to say that I came out here first to play in a lot of the casinos here. I played in all the casinos down in Reno. And I played for Harrah's for many, many years and the Nugget for many, many years. I made a lot of friends here. And I had a dear friend who lived up in Virginia City, and she was a psychic person. She had the Self-Hypnosis Center, and I loved to visit her. And one night we went up to her little house, which was a Victorian house on E Street that looked down over the valley and the Sugarloaf Mountain from Virginia City. And you know how beautiful that is. You can see 7 counties from there. It's just unbelievable, the vista. And we were sitting there just at sunset, and we had lit about 100 candles, and we had this giant pot of tea. And I heard this sound outside, and I heard this, and I couldn't identify the sound. I said, Elaine, what is that noise? And she put her finger up in the air, and she said, listen. She said, there's a horse coming. And it was a little band of wild horses walking up E Street in Virginia City. And the minute I saw them, I thought, if those horses can be here and walk up the street wild and free, maybe I can too. I want to move here. So it was the wild horses that brought me, really, truly made me want to be here in Nevada.
Oh, that is such a cool story. Now, is that what led to you being involved with the wild horses?
It did, Kim. Because I wasn't here very long before I realized that our wild horses were in terrible trouble, especially here in Nevada. For some reason, even though, and maybe perhaps because of the fact that we have more wild horses than any other state, the horses competed for grass on lands that were leased by ranchers from the federal government, the public lands.
Okay.
And that caused bad feelings because the ranchers, maybe 100 horses would go through. They would have already leased this land for their calves and their cows in the springtime. And the horses might go through 30, 40, 100 at a time. And they would call the Federal Bureau of Land Management and say, hey, I've got a bunch of horses here eating all my grass. What can you help me? Well, it might be 3 months before the Bureau of Land Management got around to having a proper crew, because it takes a special crew to handle wild horses in a way that doesn't hurt them. And they might not get around to it for 3 months. By that time, the rancher's grass was all gone.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
And that's what caused the original friction between ranchers and horses. And I'm probably one of the few advocates who does advocate for what we like to call eco-sanctuaries. In other words, we'd like to have everybody in America come up here to see us in Nevada, especially here in northern Nevada where it's so scenic.
Of course.
and we need the tourism, but these eco-tourists could come and interact. If we had a sanctuary, and I'm not talking about a zoo, I'm talking about 100 or 200,000 acre reserve where these animals could be interacted with in a non-invasive way. In other words, you don't go up and pet the grizzly bears in Yellowstone Park. You don't go up and pet the elk in Jackson Hole, but you can interact with them and take pictures of them and actually see these beautiful creatures in the real West the way they really are. That's what Nevada needs to learn about our wild horses. It needs to learn that we have the most remarkable resource, the most wonderful resource. People from all over the world will come here to see our wild horses. And that is our dream, and we have a lot of folks working on sanctuaries. We have a project going on up in the Highlands, up around Virginia City, the Virginia City Sanctuary, and a lot of our, and really Story County, I hope someday will be Wild Horse Central for the country, because it is a National Historic District. There's so much history there.
Yes.
And it's the natural place where the largest herd, arguably the largest herd of wild horses exists, out on the Virginia Range. So they're where they always were and where they like to be a lot of the time. They used to be able to migrate in and out, but now because of roads, industrial parks, housing developments, fences, and so on, unless we provide a place for them, they are a danger to themselves and to the motorists on the road. What got me really started in it was I went down to my, there's a crossroads, the road that goes up to Virginia City and the road that I live on intersect. And at that crossroads, I would see every, few months, a dead horse.
No.
And I had a beautiful stallion who used to run through my yard all the time. There were 30 or 40 horses would migrate through my yard, and in the springtime they'd come and show off their babies, and there was a beautiful stallion. He was a bay stallion, which is a brown horse with black legs, but he had 4 white feet. And he's 3 or 4, I can't remember, but he was just a lovely horse. And one morning I drove down, and there he was on the side of the road, and he'd had a terrible death because he had thrashed around, you could tell.
Oh, no.
He had been hit by a car and broken his legs. I don't know what happened to the persons in the car, but it was at that moment I said, I cannot stand by and watch this happen over and over again. These horses need their own places, and once they have their own places, they begin to be able to earn their way. Not that I think they should have to, because they already have. These wild horses that we have on the Virginia Range are descendants of the horses that the settlers in the late 1800s and early 1900s, hay was, as you know, $700 to $800 a ton in gold coin only on the Comstock up at Virginia City.
Yes, absolutely.
People couldn't afford to keep the horses that pulled their wagons or that they rode. I'm sure that the horses that pulled the beer truck got fed, but you know, but a lot of the horses were turned loose.
Yes,
into the hills.
About that. Yeah.
And Mark Twain even wrote a story about thousands of their bodies scattered over the hills in the springtime, but the ones that survived intermingled with the wild horses that were passing through.
Okay.
And that's how we got the beginnings of the Comstock wild horses of the Virginia Range.
How interesting. I didn't realize that. That's very interesting. Well, now you have a foundation.
I started a foundation. I had a friend at the time named Carolyn Cardinale, and she was the head of tourism. She did a lot of tour buses, that brought a lot of tour buses to this area and many areas. And I said, we've got to do something. We got to save these wild horses. They're precious. They're a piece of our Western heritage. They're something that in the future we will treasure. But right now they're hated. They need their own places where they can be protected, just like we do the elk in Jackson Hole and the bison in South Dakota and the grizzly bears up in Yellowstone Park. These animals need their own places. And I don't think just one place. I think we need them perhaps in many states. Montana could have a 250,000 acre place near Yellowstone Park. I think that would be a wonderful place. I think Virginia City is an ideal place for these wild horses to be. And so we've been, she said, we've got to do something. You have to form a foundation. I said, well, I have no idea how to do a foundation. I know nothing. She said, well, we just get a lawyer and we just do it. So Carolyn and I went and we co-founded the Let 'em Run Foundation in about 10, 11 years ago. But I'd actually been a wild horse advocate since about 1990. And I just never thought about having a foundation because I had a busy career.
Yes.
And still am rather busy with it.
Yes, you still are.
And so, but I thought, well, I can just do what I can do. So Carolyn and I started the Let 'em Run Foundation, and we have been helping what we like to call boots on the ground advocates for all these years. What we do is raise money, and we try to raise money, and if horses need to have their feet trimmed, we give them the money to make that happen. If horses need to be vaccinated, we give them money toward that. If they need a generator because there's not a power to the ranch where we're keeping them, we buy them a generator. We help build fences. We buy hay. This is what Let 'em Run Foundation does, and it's what we. And right now we are really promoting the idea of sanctuary.
Okay.
Eco sanctuaries.
Eco sanctuary. Okay. Is that part of Let 'em Run Foundation, or is that going to be a completely different animal?
It will probably be run by a completely different animal.
Okay.
What Let 'em Run is doing is promoting the notion of that. And we've been promoting
Okay.
the notion of that from the very beginning and what we like to call eco sanctuaries also need in the future to be self-sustainable. In other words, we need to be able to grow enough grass.
Yes.
We need ranches that are large enough to grow enough grass, not only for the horses that we have there, but for all the little mom and pop groups, because a lot of people are helping. A lot of people will take 6 or 7 horses, or 30, or 100.
Wow.
And those groups need help. And
Yes.
that's what we like to do. We like to raise money, and we like to raise awareness about these groups that are doing this wonderful work. And eventually, here in Nevada, now we do have an eco sanctuary.
Where's
It
that?
is Madeline Pickens, the wife of T. Boone Pickens, has one out by Winnemucca. And it is my understanding that it is a rather expensive experience. I think it's like $1,500 a night to stay in this fabulous teepee and have this room service and everything. I don't know what the actual cost of getting to that, into that sanctuary and just visiting the horses is. And what we're hoping is that our eco sanctuaries might be for average people.
Okay.
So families can come from Germany. They can come from, and they already do. We have taken out a couple of tours with my friend Willis Lamb.
Oh yes,
We've
Willis,
done it many. We've done it many. A great horse advocate who came here from California to teach what is called least resistance training methods, which is gentling horses rather than breaking horses.
Yes.
And it is a skillful and marvelous thing to watch. I have watched that man load an intractable, what they say is an insane wild horse, load him in a trailer in less than 5 minutes because he knows how to speak the language of the horse.
So he's a horse whisperer.
He is a horse whisperer, though he would never call himself that.
Okay. Well,
but
we
he
won't
does
call him that
teach. Well, no, he doesn't call himself that. In fact, he's one of the rastiest people I've ever known, as far as humans go. But he is. But he speaks horse, and he speaks it fluently. And I've been to his clinics. I've watched how they gentle a horse, and it's a very gradual, steady desensitizing of the animal.
Okay.
And then, once the horse is desensitized, then you can begin to train it. And the wild horses are different from domestic horses. They are actually a wild animal. We have to remember that when we're dealing with them. They look the same, sadly. They look the same as a domestic horse, but they are different in that they are actually a wild animal. They think we're going to eat them.
Yes, that's right. Because that's right. They're herd animals that they're prey, or that they know that. That's right.
They know
I
that
always
we're
forget
predators.
That. Yeah, they know we're predators and they're prey, and I forget that because they're so big and majestic. And
some people do want to eat them. There are a lot of
Yes.
people who want to have horses slaughtered for food. Well, not that many. 82% of us all over the United States are absolutely against the slaughter of wild horses. I am very, very much against the slaughter of wild horses.
Well, we have to get it to 100%.
Well, I think if people knew,
Yeah.
it would probably be closer to 99, because
Yeah.
the slaughter methods that happen in Mexico, particularly in Mexico and Canada, where we send the horses, we don't do it here. We send it somewhere else.
That's right. Not in our backyard.
Not in our backyard,
Yes.
but we send about 160,000 horses went last year to a slaughter that is unspeakable.
Oh.
The head of the teaching veterinarians for the U.S. Department of Agriculture testified before Congress in 2008 that the captive bolt, which is how we kill cattle with a hydraulic bolt to the forehead here, a cow's brain is right there. So They are stunned and they do not know what's happening to them. A horse's brain is back here, and they use that captive bolt. The horse regains consciousness within 30 seconds and is fully aware of being vivisected.
Oh.
This, to me, is an affront to God Almighty. This is absolutely un-Christian. It is un-American. It is against everything that I believe in, because I believe that the same spirit that animates us also animates everything that is. And I think it is an affront to that spirit to do that to a horse that way.
Well, I had no idea that was going on.
No one does.
Well, and that's why you're on the show. Now, what can our viewers do to help?
Well, you can, of course, always call your congressman, call your governors. I would call the governor this week. I called the governor this morning and asked for a cooperative agreement that the advocates have been trying to get with the Department of Agriculture here be enacted. The legislature has made it law that they must do it, and they've been dragging their feet for months. They say they're working through details. Well, how many details do you have to work through? This is a program, if they work with the advocates, it's going to take a great deal of expense off the backs of the taxpayer.
That's right.
It's going to take a great deal of problems off the backs of the Department of Agriculture, and it's going to be better for the horses. And we need their help. We don't want to take it away from our state. We want to enhance it in our state. And there's been so much friction for so many years between advocates and the Department of Agriculture, who it appears, and in my opinion, would like to send all of our horses to sale, which means slaughter. An untrained horse in a recession right now, and really pretty much always has been, an untrained horse goes to sale. A couple people might buy them to train them, but likely not. There are killer buyers, we call them, that wait at the sales, and they buy these horses per pound. They are then shipped to Mexico and Canada, where, though they are full, many of this doesn't happen as much to wild horses actually at this time as it does to domestic horses. It does to our Nevada state horses. They can be sent to slaughter. Federal horses cannot. And the only difference between a federal horse and a Nevada state horse is whether they're standing on one side of a line or the other.
Really?
Yes, and horses migrate. So our treasures are being sent off, the treasures of our Western heritage, rather than being managed with intelligent birth control and intelligent management, are managed by hysteria. Oh, we have too many horses. Oh, we have too many this. And the appetite for fillet of baby foal is growing all around the world.
Well, again, good thing that we have you on our show today so that people will learn more about this. These are things I didn't know, and I did, obviously some research before you came on the show, and I did not know these things.
It's very hard to know these things unless you're involved in it, and I think it is a great and grievous wrong, and I think it is an affront to spirit. And I really think it's un-American. We don't eat horses in America.
Well, that's like, we don't eat our dogs and our cats, so they're pets. We wouldn't eat our pets. And so I don't agree with it either.
Well, I hope I never get hungry enough to want to.
Well, that there were times when back, 200 years ago, 150, at desperate times, explorers coming across the United States and so forth. We understand that sort of thing, but not to go to the grocery store. Now, I have a question for you because you do a lot of fundraising for this effort, and you do it through concerts and performances, and I see you have you have several of your wonderful albums here. Do you want to tell us anything in particular about these before we go today?
Well, I would like to tell you, I have a new CD, and this is one song, and it is the most marvelous song. It's a song that is really male-affirming. You hear all these songs about, stand by your man, or because he's a mess. This song says, stand by your man because he standeth by you. It's called Next to Me.
Oh.
It was written by a woman named Emily Sandé, and her version of this song has had 43 million hits on the, and it's been a huge hit in pop music. I did it in a style that we like to call Americana, which is more country, folky style. But it's a wonderful new record, and I am grateful to have found the song. This CD is a CD that 100% of the proceeds of this CD go to the wild horses.
Oh, that's how people can help.
And they can. You can buy this CD. It's called Wild Horse Crossing, and it had John Tyson was on this, our great broadcaster. We had Bean Souza. We had Stephen Earl Swinford and Bean Souza produced this CD. And everybody who did this, the Comstock Cowboys and Richard Aloyan and myself and Robert Skip Dees, all donated 100% of not only their performance, but the publishing of their songs.
Oh, that's
to raise
good.
money for the Wild Horses. And we've raised probably $100,000 over a few years with this
Amazing.
with this project. And you can get this from CD Baby,
Okay.
or you can get this from you can write Let 'em Run Foundation. That's letemrun.com, and you can buy this CD. And every penny of it, except what we need to keep making it, which is about $1.25, goes to the Wild Horses. So you're really helping the Wild Horses when you buy this CD, Wild Horse Crossing. That's a good CD, I think.
It's a beautiful looking CD. Now, can you really quickly give everybody your contact information, or the contact, not personal, but your contact information to get a hold of Let 'em Run?
It's letemrun.com.
That's simple.
It's LETEM, not Let It Run. I think that sounds like a commode. But everybody calls it Let It Run, but it's Let 'em Run. And it's actually, there's a song on here called Let 'em Run. Oh. And we named the and actually I wish I'd found a better name, but that's what we're stuck with, and it's that's the name of our foundation, LETEMRUN.com.
Well, I think.
And if you forget, you can get there from LacyJ.com.
Okay. Well, I think that's an awesome name. And, thank you so much for being a guest on our show today. You can come back anytime you want. How's that?
Right back at you,
Okay.
Kim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everybody for being with us today. And if you have an idea for a show, please contact me at 775-220-0605 or info@genoahistoricghosttours.com. And please remember, history is made every moment, every hour, and every day by every one of us. Make our history count and keep it alive.